Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 35 of The Loud House, Kick the Bucket List. We begin this segment with Lincoln preparing to head to the McBride house to meet up with Clyde. He explains to the audience that he and Clyde spent their Christmas vacation forming a bucket list for what they want to do for spring vacation, which lasts for 9 days in total. When he goes to the McBride house, Clyde explains to him that he just found out that he and his dads are going to Hawaii for 8 days. And Lincoln realizes that would still leave them with one more day of spring break by the time he returns. So they decide that they'll be able to accomplish their spring break bucket list on the last day of spring break. Both of them agree that they should trim down the list, and next up we get a montage of time passing by throughout these 8 days. And we see Lincoln and Clyde both editing their respective copies of the spring break bucket list. By the time the final day of spring break arrives and Clyde has returned to Royal Woods with his dads, Lincoln and Clyde compare their copies of the spring break bucket list, and they find out that they did not remove any of the objectives on the list. Instead, they ended up adding a few things. So they decide they have to, I guess you could say, marathon through their list in order to accomplish it in the one day. Because Rita also wants to make sure that Lincoln returns home before the street lights turn on. And according to Clyde, that gives them about 8 hours to accomplish what they want to accomplish on the spring break bucket list. So they proceed to speed along through that. We see a few of their objectives, like they try to speed through all the new ARC episodes that happened during spring break. They want to ride the latest ride at Dairyland Amusement Park. They want to play with puppies at a pet store, but because they're taking a bath at the time, they have to, they interact with a very aggressive bird known as Petey, so that doesn't go well. And, well, as you can imagine, they're having a hard time trying to get through their list. They're not even halfway through the list as time is ticking. So they decide to split the list in half so they can each complete half of it individually. And at this part, we do see scenes of them trying to accomplish these respective halves of the list. And, well, in Clyde's case, he actually uses a substitute for Lincoln. He draws Lincoln, or draws Lincoln's face on a rock, some driftwood, and a pizza box, for example. And in both situations, some of the Loud sisters are present for both of the boys' objectives, and each of the both boys respond with, Lincoln will say it's in his words, him and Clyde thing, and Clyde will say it's a him and Lincoln thing. And eventually they both meet up on the bus because they completed their respective halves of the bucket list, but they admit that it wasn't very fun, and they kind of realized that they were so obsessed with finishing the bucket list that they didn't have the time to actually enjoy themselves. But then when the bus, because of Scoots, when Scoots is trying to cross the street, it causes the bus to hit something on the road, which causes the tire one of the tires to go out. So Lincoln and Clyde have to race to make it back home before the street lights turn on. And we see them, they end up hitching a ride from Scoots, and then we see them riding all sorts of, from animals to items and to minor means of transportation, but traditional means of transportation. They run quite the gauntlet, so to speak, to finally reach the Loud House before the street lights turn on, but they do it. They are able to make it to the Loud House before the street lights turn on. And Lincoln and Clyde admit they ended up having more fun trying to get back to the Loud House than they did the rest of the day. And that's when they decide they're not going to have a bucket list for summer vacation. They'll just see what comes up as the summer vacation proceeds. So Clyde rides an animal back home, and Lincoln goes back into his house, but for some reason Petey is there and proceeds to attack Lincoln. And when the Loud sisters see this, they just dismiss it as a Lincoln and Clyde thing and head upstairs while the segment ends with Lincoln being attacked by Petey. Now, overall, this segment actually reminded me of something that, a mindset that I myself have is, and it does remind me of some people I know in real life. The whole idea of Lincoln and Clyde having a bucket list and trying to complete it for spring break, that reminds me of a lot of people I know who like to tell me a lot about their bucket list. And for myself, I've mentioned before, I usually am someone who likes to plan things out, but I don't really have a bucket list for like vacation times or stuff like that. So that was actually something that I could definitely agree with the lesson for this segment about how just have fun doing it or actually enjoy something. And that's how I think. Like I said, I may plan certain things out, but when it comes to just enjoying myself, I don't really have a bucket list or try to check mark some objectives. It's just have fun, see what happens in life. So that was a lesson I definitely could appreciate because it's a mindset that I have. And Lincoln and Clyde's obsession with finishing the bucket list, leading them to not enjoying themselves. Like I said, that reminded me of some people I know in real life who constantly obsess over or fixate on their bucket lists that they don't end up enjoying themselves. So I thought this segment was a good lesson there. And so overall, I really did enjoy this segment. While I'm thinking about it, during the line for the Dairyland amusement park ride, I did notice Christina was in the line. We don't see her face, but we do see her hair, the top of her head, and I thought that was a nice touch because, I believe that's the first time Christina appears in season 2 of The Loud House, and I thought that was nice to see. Granted, she still hasn't really had a major role yet, and whether she ever will have a major role in the show or not, who knows? I mean, I'm still hopeful that we'll get to see more of Christina, have a better understanding of her character, but it was nice to see that Christina did show up again, even if it was just a brief appearance and just, a very minor appearance. And as for anything else I can talk about with the segment, I will admit, I thought that ending was just kind of random. I mean, Petey somehow just gets into the house, starts to attack Lincoln, and the sisters just pass it off as another Lincoln and Clyde thing. It is kind of like, I don't get what the point of that was. If that was supposed to be funny, it just comes off as kind of, what? Or kind of random. So, but like I said, it didn't ruin my enjoyment of the segment. I still overall enjoyed this segment. And Yeah, there you go. I did overall like the segment. I like the lesson of the segment. It was one I very much relate to and agree with. And it was nice to see Christina again, even if it was just a brief appearance. And like I said, there was just a random ending, but it didn't ruin my enjoyment of the segment. So there you go. As to be expected, we'll be discussing the B segment next. Take care, and until next time.